and welcome to Indus News Live from Islamabad. I'm Hira Mustafa and these are the headlines. Pakistan's Army Chief General Qamar Javed Bajwa says the Indian Army will get a befitting response to any misadventure. He said this during his visit to the line of control, where he was briefed on India's ceasefire violations, including the recent targeted attack on UN military observers. General Bajwa said Indian provocations are jeopardizing peace and stability in the region. He added that the Pakistan Army will ensure the protection of civilians besides defending the territorial integrity of the country. His visit follows the killing of a woman in unprovoked Indian firing from across the line of control. Meanwhile, security forces have killed 10 terrorists during an intelligence-based operation in Pakistan's southwestern Balochistan province. In a statement, the military's media wing said the terrorists were involved in the Sunday's attack on security forces, which resulted in the martyrdom of a soldier. In Afghanistan, at least 5 people have been killed and 2 others wounded in a mine blast in the capital, Kabul. Police say the mine was placed in a vehicle carrying doctors. No group has claimed responsibility for the blast yet. In India, thousands of farmers have set off from Maharashtra Strait to join the protest at Delhi borders. Farmers from Punjab, Haryana and Uttar Pradesh have been camping for weeks against new laws they say favor big corporates. Meanwhile, farm leaders say the letter from Narendra Modi government has nothing new to offer. The United States has surpassed 18 million coronavirus cases with more than 319,000 deaths. As vaccination efforts mount nationwide, President-elect Joe Biden received his first dose on live TV to boost confidence in its safety. While Pakistan has reported more than 1,700 infections and 82 fatalities in the last 24 hours. The nationwide death toll has jumped to 9,474. Globally, there are more than 1.7 million deaths and 77 million infections. And in cricket, Pakistan beat New Zealand by 4 wickets in the final 2020 at Maclean Park, Napier. New Zealand won the first 2 matches to clinch the series 2-1. Mohammad Rizwan was declared man of the match for his winning innings of 89 runs. Well, these were the headlines. News in detail coming after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back, and now the news in detail. Pakistan's Army Chief General Qamar Javed Bajwa says the Indian Army will get a befitting response to any misadventure. He said this during his visit to the line of control, where he was briefed on India's ceasefire violations, including the recent targeted attack on UN military observers. General Bajwa said Indian provocations are jeopardizing peace and stability in the region. He added that the Pakistan Army will ensure the protection of civilians, besides defending the territorial integrity of the country. His visit follows the killing of a woman in unprovoked Indian firing from across the line of control. 3 people, including a 4-year-old girl, was also wounded in the firing. A military's media wing statement said Indian troops deliberately targeted the civilian population with mortars and heavy weapons. Meanwhile, security forces have killed 10 terrorists during an intelligence-based operation in Pakistan's southwestern Balochistan province. A cache of arms and ammunition was also recovered from the terrorists' hideout. In a statement, the military's media wing said the terrorists were involved in the Sunday's attack on security forces. A soldier was martyred in the shootout with the terrorists. Now moving on to India, thousands of farmers have set off from Maharashtra street to join the protest at Delhi borders. Farmers from Punjab, Haryana and Uttar Pradesh have been camping for weeks against new laws they say favor big corporates. Earlier, a 65-year-old farmer protesting at the Singhu border attempted suicide by consuming poison. He was rushed to the hospital and is now out of danger. In a separate development, farm leaders say the latest letter from the Narendra Modi government has nothing new to offer. They have also appealed to Bihar and other states to join the agitation to further pressurize the government to repeal the contentious laws. Meanwhile, the Left Democratic Front of Kerala has decided to convene a special session to pass a resolution against the laws. For more on this, we are joined by Arun Kumar, a Haryana-based economist. For more on this, we are joined by the ongoing farmers' protest has entered its fourth week. 25 farmers have died during this period, but the government is still reluctant to withdraw controversial reforms. What's your say on this?
So, there is a standoff at the moment because the farmers' movement is gathering strength, whereas the government is not talking to them at the moment. After the meeting with the Home Minister on the 9th, the farmers toughened their stand and they said they'll only, talk if the government decides to withdraw the bills and withdraw the laws that now prevail. So in a sense, now the government is saying, okay, we are going to send a letter and, then maybe we can have a talk again. But the farmers have responded to that by saying that that is not good enough. You're only, sort of pronouncing what has already happened. So you please let us know whether you're withdrawing the bill or not. So that's the standoff at the moment. Farmers are saying withdraw the bill. The government is not willing to withdraw the bill because I think there is a problem that, the government doesn't want to see that it's bending. And as you mentioned, farmers from different parts of the country are joining, like from Maharashtra, earlier from Gujarat also. And, farmers yesterday were stopped, from different parts of Uttar Pradesh from joining the border at Delhi. So there is a strengthening of the movement which is going on. The farmers have also started a YouTube channel to propagate their message. And they've also started a newsletter from the border where they are camping. So, the farmers are also organizing better to try and, see that their movement gets strengthened. But the government is as yet not willing to bend.
Sir, how badly is the ongoing protest hurting India's economy, which is already under pressure due to the coronavirus pandemic?
When Delhi is the biggest wholesale market in North India, and when the borders have been, sort of sealed, not completely, there are still some routes which are available, but it means that trade and transportation have been disturbed. But this is only in North India. It's not all over the country. So, maybe, a few $100 million worth of products are not able to come, not able to go. Manufacturing is getting affected because of raw material supplies not coming in and the manufactured products not going out. But I would like to add that, one has to look at these movements in the long-term perspective. If the economy slows down further as a result of these bills, because they cause greater disparity, then the loss could be 10 times, 100 times greater than what this particular movement may be leading to. So I think they have to have a short-term and a long-term perspective, because these bills, as far as the farmers are concerned, are draconian. They will lead to problems in farming. So I think in the long run, this kind of movement may actually benefit the economy, whereas in the short run, it may lead to damage. And that would add to the problems that, as you said, because of the particular problems related to the pandemic.
Thank you, Mr. Kumar, for talking to Indus News. And now moving on to Islamabad has asked the United Nations to probe the extrajudicial killings of 11 Pakistani Hindus in India. Human Rights Minister Shiri Mazari said this in a letter to the UN High Commissioner. Mazari demanded the fulfillment of reparations for families of the deceased. She said India should abide by the Vienna Convention and allow an impartial investigation into the matter. Mazari demanded the constitution of an investigation team over India's gross human rights violations. In August 2020, 11 Pakistani Hindus were executed extrajudicially in Jodhpur district of Rajasthan in India. Now moving on to Afghanistan, at least 5 people have been killed and 2 others wounded in a mine blast in the capital, Kabul. Police say the mine was placed in a vehicle carrying doctors. No group has claimed responsibility for the blast yet. Kabul has witnessed at least 60 attacks in the last 2 months, in which 133 people have been killed. Iran has denied involvement in the recent rocket attack on the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad, Iraq. Foreign Affairs spokesperson Saeed Khatibzadeh says U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's accusations aim to create tensions. In a tweet, Khatibzadeh said Iran does not support attacks on diplomatic missions. He added that U.S. presence in the Middle East is a source of regional instability. Meanwhile, Iraqi Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kadhimi has confirmed the arrest of several suspects in the attack. In a press release, al-Kadhimi said the attack on Green Zone was a cowardly terrorist attack. No group has so far claimed responsibility for the attack. Iran says it will rapidly reverse its violations of 2015 nuclear deal when the U.S. and European powers perform their duties. In a tweet, Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif said this is the last chance for world powers to save the deal. Zarif reiterated that the renegotiation of the accord is out of question. The foreign minister said the European mission shares the blame with the U.S. for harming Iranians. He added that democracies cannot ask Iran to violate its parliamentary legislation. He was speaking after a virtual meeting of parties to the pact, the first at the level of foreign ministers in over a year. Now moving on to China has urged the U.S. to halt what it called Washington's erroneous actions. This comes after the U.S. imposed restrictions on Chinese and Russian firms for alleged military ties. In a press briefing, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Wang Wenbin said Washington abuses the concept of national security to crack down on foreign enterprises. Earlier, the U.S. published a list of 58 Chinese and 45 Russian companies, restricting them from buying American goods. Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross said the move will assist exporters in screening their customers for military end users. The list is scheduled to be posted for public inspection in the Federal Register today. China has warned of countermeasures against U.S. visa bans on its officials. The Chinese Foreign Ministry says Washington used visas as a weapon against Beijing. In a press briefing, the ministry's spokesperson Wang Wenbin said the U.S. has severely interfered in internal affairs. Earlier, the U.S. issued visa sanctions on Chinese officials over alleged human rights abuses. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said Chinese authoritarianism curbs people's freedom of expression and religion. Russia has expanded the list of European Union officials barred from the country in response to EU sanctions. In a statement, the Foreign Ministry said Moscow will continue to respond appropriately to unfriendly actions by Western countries. It also summoned diplomats from German, Swedish, and French embassies to notify of the move. The representatives arrived at Moscow's Foreign Office to discuss the issue. Earlier, the EU imposed sanctions on top Russian officials over the poisoning of Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny. Germany says he was poisoned with a Soviet-style nerve agent, an assertion many Western nations accept. U.S. Senator Ron Wyden says dozens of email accounts at the U.S. Treasury Department have been compromised. Wyden's office issued a statement following a briefing given to Senate's Finance Committee. Wyden said the full depth of the Treasury Department's hack was not known. The Democrat said hackers also breached the systems at Treasury's Departmental Offices Division, home to its top officials. He also quoted the Internal Revenue Service saying there was no evidence that agency or taxpayer data was compromised. Earlier in an interview, Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin said there had been no damage in the attacks. Mnuchin had assured that authorities were on top of the hacks. The U.S. has sanctioned 3 Nicaraguan officials over the support for President Daniel Ortega's government. In a statement, the Treasury Secretary reaffirmed the Trump administration's commitment to target the Ortega regime. Steven Mnuchin said Washington will continue to expose those who suppress democracy. The officials blacklisted include Vice President of the Supreme Court, National Assembly Deputy, and Leon City's police chief. Meanwhile, Trump administration has also imposed Cuba-related sanctions on 3 businesses. They're accused of being run by the Cuban military and awaiting existing curbs. Lashing out at the U.S. measure, Cuban Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez said the country will move forward no matter what. Israel's defense forces have killed another Palestinian over allegations that he attempted to open fire at a security checkpoint. Palestinian media said IDF closed the old city after the shooting near the Bab al-Hatta gate of Al-Aqsa Mosque. Meanwhile, the outgoing UN envoy for Middle East peace, Nikolai Mladenov, issued a stark warning about the plight of Palestinians. He said loss and displacement are part of the personal history of every single Palestinian household. Earlier, China's representative to the UN expressed concern over the expansion of settlements in occupied Palestinian territory. He also urged concerned authorities to immediately lift the blockade on Gaza. The U.S. Congress has passed a legislation to restore Sudan's sovereign immunity. The bill has been sent to President Donald Trump to sign into law. The bill will also authorize $111 million to pay off part of Sudan's bilateral debt, while $120 million will be paid to Sudan to pay off its debt to the International Monetary Fund. Another $700 million will be available until September 2022 for economic assistance to the country. Last week, Sudan's finance minister said a U.S. bridge loan would allow Sudan to clear debts to the World Bank. U.S. Attorney General William Barr has undercut President Donald Trump on the election and the Hunter Biden probe. In his final public appearance, Barr said he saw no reason to appoint a special counsel to investigate claims of election fraud. He said there was no basis for the U.S. government to seize voting machines used in the election. Set to leave office this week, Barr said Hunter Biden's investigation is being handled responsibly and professionally.
If I thought a special counsel at this stage was the right tool and was appropriate, I would name one, but I haven't, and I'm not going to. On the second question, I think to the extent that there's an investigation, I think that it's being handled responsibly and professionally currently within the department, and to this point, I have not seen a reason to appoint a special counsel, and I have no plan to do so before I leave.
Barr also reinforced the belief of federal officials that Russia was behind the massive hack of U.S. government agencies. And now moving on to United States Congress has approved a $892 billion coronavirus aid package. It is being combined with a massive $1.4 trillion government spending bill to fund federal agencies for the new fiscal year. The approval of the mammoth spending bill follows days of furious negotiations. The bill allocates $166 billion for one-time payments of $600 to citizens earning less than $75,000 in the preceding tax year. It also includes a paycheck protection program extending $284 billion in loans to small businesses. The wide-ranging bill also steers money to schools, airlines, transit systems, and vaccine distribution. President Donald Trump is soon expected to sign the package into law. More news stories coming up after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. The United States has surpassed 18 million coronavirus cases with more than 319,000 deaths. As vaccination efforts mount nationwide, President-elect Joe Biden received his first dose on live television to boost confidence in its safety. Globally, there are more than 1.7 million deaths and 77 million infections. More details in this report.
A surge in coronavirus deaths and fears over a more infectious mutation of the virus has prompted nations to issue more stringent curbs for the Christmas week. Canada's most populous province, Ontario, has announced a partial shutdown of businesses and banned most indoor gatherings. A report says last week the virus claimed one life every 30 seconds in the U.S. as the country saw deadliest 7 days with over 18,000 deaths. California says it will extend stay-at-home orders as many counties have run out of intensive care beds. As new infections, hospitalizations, and deaths keep soaring, Biden has urged the public to remain prepared for the vaccine jab.
I also think that it's worth saying that this is great hope. I'm doing this to demonstrate that people should be prepared when it's available to take the vaccine. There's nothing to worry about. I'm looking forward to the second shot. So is Jill. She's had her shot earlier today.
Britain's highly infectious new strain has caused travel chaos and raised the prospects of food shortages. Scientists say, unlike the previous strains, children are as susceptible to becoming infected with the new strain as adults. The European Union says it will develop a coordinated strategy in the region for how to handle travel to and from Britain. Meanwhile, Europe's medicine regulator has approved the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine with inoculations to start across the region within the next few days.
As we have promised, this vaccine will be available for all EU countries at the same time, on the same conditions. The first batches of this vaccine will be shipped from Pfizer's manufacturing site here in Belgium within the next days. And I've always said during this pandemic that we are in this together.
Over in Asia, Malaysia has signed a deal to procure 6.4 million doses of AstraZeneca's coronavirus vaccine. While in Australia, New South Wales reported the lowest one-day rise in cases in nearly a week, fueling optimism that the dangerous new outbreak in Sydney is under control.
Now moving on to Pakistan, 82 people have lost their lives to COVID-19 over the past 24 hours. This takes the country's death toll to 9,474. The health ministry says 1,704 people tested positive for the virus overnight. It added there are over 40,000 active COVID-19 cases in the country. Out of over 460,000 countrywide cases, more than 410,000 people have recovered. The ministry said the southern province of Sindh has the highest number of cases with over 205,000 infections. The province of Punjab has reported more than 132,000 cases. In the capital city of Islamabad, over 36,000 have been infected so far. The Pakistan-China joint air exercise Shaheen 9, which commenced on 9 December, has entered its last phase. Air Chief Marshal Mujahid Anwar Khan said Chinese military aviation technology has the full capacity to meet the challenges of modern warfare. The air chief lauded the professionalism of pilots. He said the interoperation of the two air forces will create employment options. The China-Pakistan joint training has been conducted regularly since 2011. China's foreign ministry says the routine drill does not target any third country. Toxic air killed more people in India in 2019 than in 2017. The Lancet report shared by the government said 1.67 million deaths accounted for 18% of all fatalities. India faces a growing economic as well as human toll from bad air quality, which was linked to 1.24 million deaths in the previous such study for 2017. The analysis found pollution led to respiratory infections, lung cancer, heart disease, and other infections. The journal said landlocked New Delhi recorded the highest per capita economic hit. The fatalities in 2019 led to a total loss of $36.8 billion, or 1.36% of India's gross domestic products. Swiss air quality technology company ICAR said India's three main cities, New Delhi, Kolkata and Mumbai, were on the list of world's 20 worst polluted cities. Turkey says Ankara and Jakarta should work together to support the Muslim community against Islamophobia. Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu says the two must protect mutual aims and interests of Muslims. Cavusoglu addressed a press conference alongside Indonesian counterpart Retno Marsudi in Jakarta. The Turkish Foreign Minister highlighted the increased rates of discrimination against the Muslim world. He added that both the countries have agreed to increase bilateral trade to $10 billion from the current $1.5 billion. The two ministers inked a memorandum of understanding on diplomatic cooperation. In Lebanon, the parliament has endorsed a landmark law criminalizing sexual harassment. It could see the most flagrant perpetrators spend up to 4 years in prison and pay fines up to 50 times the minimum wage. A rights group says the law should serve as a deterrent and lead to a significant drop in the rate of sexual crimes. The bill also gives protection to victims and witnesses who testify against the accused. It also creates a specialized fund at the Social Affairs Ministry tasked with offering support and rehabilitation to survivors. The bill explicitly gives survivors the right to seek compensation. Now moving on to Somalia has agreed to de-escalate border tensions with neighboring Kenya during a joint conference in Djibouti. But Mogadishu suggests it was pressurized by the African Union and the Intergovernmental Authority on Development. Foreign Minister Mohammed Abdi Razak said Somalia accepted the IGAD's condition but demanded a commission to look into its complaints, including the arming of militias inside Kenya. He said the agreement to reduce border tiff is the first step to de-escalate tensions. Earlier, Somalia cut diplomatic ties with Kenya, accusing it of violating Somali sovereignty and meddling in its internal affairs before a general election. A statue of Confederate General Robert E. Lee was removed from the U.S. Capitol. Officials announced the pro-slavery monument will be replaced by a statue of Black civil rights activist Barbara Johns. Johns was 16 when she led classmates at her all-black Virginia high school in protest of substandard conditions. Her activism led to a 1954 Supreme Court lawsuit that declares segregation illegal. In a statement, House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi said the Congress will work to end the scourge of racism. Pelosi said there was no room for celebrating the bigotry of the Confederacy in the Capitol or any other place of honor. Over 5 dozen climbers from countries including Nepal, the US and Spain have arrived in Pakistan for K2's winter expedition. Of the 14 mountains that rise to at least 88,000 meters, K2 is the only one unclimbed during winter due to its high winds and icy slopes. The climbers from different countries will make all-out efforts to claim one of the last remaining great prizes in mountaineering. During winters, avalanches are an ever-present risk, with temperatures falling to -65 Celsius and winds blowing with the power of cyclones. K2 has earned the nickname of Killer Mountain for the large number of mountaineers who have lost their lives climbing it. According to the National Geographic, a winter ascent has only been attempted 5 times prior to 2019. Over 300 climbers have scaled the K2 in spring and summer, but none in winter. Jupiter and Saturn appear to meet in celestial alignment known as the Great Conjunction. This was the first time in 400 years that the two planets were spotted so close, almost as a single point of light.
The sky over the northern hemisphere treated stargazers and astrologers to a once-in-a-lifetime illusion when the two biggest planets met. The rare spectacle resulted from a near convergence of orbits of Jupiter and Saturn that happened to coincide with Monday's winter solstice, the shortest day of the year. At the point of convergence, Jupiter and Saturn appeared to be just 1/10 of a degree apart, roughly equivalent to the thickness of a dime held at arm's length. In reality, of course, the planets remained hundreds of millions of miles apart, according to NASA. A conjunction of the two planets takes place about once every 20 years. But the last time Jupiter and Saturn came as close together in the sky was in 1623.
China's new medium-lift carrier rocket Long March 8 has made its maiden flight. China National Space Administration says it sent 5 satellites into the planned orbit. The launch mission was carried out at the Wanchang spacecraft launch site in South China's Henan province. The rocket uses module design and can be prepared in a short time, making it competitive for commercial launch. It has a payload capacity of over 4.5 tons to a 700-kilometer altitude sun-synchronous orbit and 2.8 tons to geostationary transfer orbit. The Long March 8 is estimated to conduct 10 to 20 launches annually after it hits the market. In Singapore, with the coronavirus disrupting holiday trips overseas, some residents have decided to pack their luggage and head to Jewel Changi Airport, where the top floor of the airport mall has been transformed into a camping site. More details in the following report.
Staying overnight at an airport is not unheard of, especially if you missed a flight. However, some people are willingly choosing to spend the night at Singapore's Changi Airport, albeit in luxury tents that offer glamping, a portmanteau for glamorous camping.
Usually we go out of the country every holiday, but since we can't travel much and it's the school holiday, so I thought, why not do something different for the children? And I think they enjoy camping, right? They always, set up tents in our house. So I thought, okay, let's give them this experience.
To bring the holiday spirit to life, grounds covered with luxury tents have been decked out with queen-sized beds, toiletries, and festive Christmas lights. People pay up to $269 a night for the experience.
I mean, it is pretty pricey. When I told my husband, he was like, we could have paid for a hotel, which we did. We went for a staycation, but I told him I think it's more for the kids, not really for us. It's an experience for them and it's something different. So I said, it's okay. Anyway, the money, instead of going overseas, we just spend it in Singapore.
Since no campfires are allowed, the glampers get to wake up to the gushing sounds of the mall's indoor waterfall, along with an added perk of shopping discounts. While there are many happy campers, some people are hesitant if the demand will even remain once the pandemic has passed.
The Christian community in Pakistan is preparing to celebrate a historical and unusual Christmas owing to the second wave of the coronavirus pandemic in the country. While this year there will be restrictions on social distancing and masks, the Christian community all over the country has lit up beautiful displays to commemorate the start of the festive holiday. Residents of Karachi and nearby towns, including clerics of various faiths, joined in the annual Santa Claus parade in the port city. Details in the following report.
Large crowds dressed as Santas marched from the Christian cemetery in Karachi to the press club. Some were wearing masks as the coronavirus continues to plague the country. Not only Christians, but people from various other religions joined the pre-Christmas celebrations.
I am dressed as Santa Claus because Christmas is coming and I want to bring happiness to the children and bring them gifts. People from all religions and faiths have joined us, Muslim clerics and people from various interfaith groups.
The jubilant crowd, including women and children, rode through various streets of the city in trucks, bikes, and camel carts. While dancing and singing Christmas carols, not everybody was seen wearing a mask. Vicar General of Catholic Hospice Karachi has called on the masses to adopt precautionary measures.
Most certainly, this is an epidemic, a virus which everyone has to protect himself from. That is why we are stressing that SOPs should be followed and precautionary measures should be strictly adopted. You can see everyone wearing masks. Even I am holding a mask in my hand, which I have just removed to talk to you. You can see that all our people are celebrating this festival while adhering to the SOPs.
There are over 460,000 COVID-19 infections in Pakistan, with more than 9,474 deaths.
And now it's time to take a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back, and now moving on to the business stories. Pakistan has secured $1.7 billion debt relief agreements to tackle the coronavirus-hit economy. The government concluded agreements with 19 bilateral creditors, including the Paris Club. The deal secures moratorium on debt repayments to ease coronavirus impact on the economy. Ministry of Economic Affairs Secretary Noor Ahmed said the timely deal will save lives and livelihoods. Pakistan was named as one of the countries to secure the deal from the Paris Club in June. Tesla's shares have ended sharply lower in the S&P 500W. The electric car maker ended down 6.5% from a record high in the previous session. Losses surged towards the end of the session with news of a potential future competition from Apple. The decline in Tesla's shares accounted for about 1.1% of the S&P 500's 0.4% decline for the day. Actively managed funds must now decide whether to buy shares of Tesla and risk underperforming if Tesla's recent rally continues. The Elon Musk-owned auto giant is the most valuable company ever admitted to Wall Street's main benchmark. U.S. stocks are holding steady after the Congress approved a long-delayed coronavirus relief package. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is trading lower by 0.25%. The S&P 500 is trading fractionally lower, and the Nasdaq Composite is trading marginally higher. Meanwhile, oil prices dropped further as a new strain of coronavirus in the UK triggered concerns over fuel demand recovery. Now moving on to Pakistan beat New Zealand by 4 wickets in the final 2020 at the Maclean Park, Napier. New Zealand won the first 2 matches to clinch the series 2-1. Mohammad Rizwan was declared man of the match for his winning innings of 89 runs. Earlier, New Zealand set a target of 174 runs after being put into the bat first. Devon Conway top scored with 63 runs, while Tim Seifert added 35 for New Zealand. In reply, Pakistan were able to chase the target with 2 balls to spare. Mohammad Hafiz added 41 runs for the Green Shirts. In football, Chelsea have thrashed West Ham United 3-0 in their Premier League encounter. Tammy Abraham scored twice to help the Blues move up to the 5th place on the league table with 25 points. Chelsea had an ideal start as Thiago Silva powered home a header in the 10th minute. Abraham then scored a second-half brace to seal 3 points for the home side. West Ham remained 10th on 21 points. In another fixture, Burnley beat Wolverhampton Wanderers 2-1 to move out of the bottom 3. Ashley Barnes and Chris Wood scored goals for Burnley, while Fabio Silva scored for the Wolves. The American international Alex Morgan has ended her loan spell at Tottenham Hotspur to return to the U.S. 2-time World Cup winner Morgan joined the Spurs from Orlando Pride in a bid to regain match fitness following the birth of her child. The 31-year-old signing was seen as a coup for SPURS, but only made 5 appearances in the competition. She scored twice in the Women's Super League, where the club sit 8 out of 12 teams in the standings. Spurs have struggled in this season, and the club sacked coaches Karen Hills and Juan Omaris last month, with Rehan Skinner taking over. Morgan's last appearance came in a 3-1 win over Aston Villa on December 13, when she scored an opener from the penalty spot. FIFA has lodged a criminal complaint against former President Sepp Blatter over the finances of a museum in Zurich, Switzerland. The charges relate to the involvement of Blatter and other formal officials in the FIFA Museum project. It is the latest allegation of financial impropriety against Blatter, who resigned from his post in 2015 amid a corruption scandal. The 84-year-old denies any wrongdoing. Now it's time to have a look at the weather update across the globe. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.News.